Right, so this violin has come in for routine inspection and maintenance, but the owner's complaining that the sound has deteriorated recently, so we have to work out what's going on. It's always important to make sure that you're not scratching the varnish with the tool that you use to take the chin rest off. Yes, so the first thing to do is make sure it is all securely glued, because if any of these edges are loose and rattling, that always causes a loss of sound for the instrument. That sounds clean, and by eye, and just putting the lightest amount of pressure around the edges, and especially at the corners. The very tip of the corner they've come loose right at the tip. This will also help to tell you if any of the purfling is loose. There's insufficient glue in the purfling, and that notorious cause of buzzing and sound problems. Yes, the initial check is for the edges, and I do that in 3 ways. Once by tapping all around the instrument at the edge, not on the rib, just within the rib where it is flexing, and then I check visually and by putting light tension all around on the seam to make sure the seam is secure, and then I check the purfling by just applying a little bit of saliva, and then you can see if the purfling is loose, when you flex it lightly with your thumb, you will see the saliva being drawn in, and that's a sign that it's, as we say, thirsty for glue. And in that case, we would rub some glue into that area to fix that. So the next thing is to check that all the playing setup is as it should be, that everything measures correctly and is in the right position for playing comfort, and that will involve checking the string heights. Is that we want 3 3/4 of a millimetre under the E string and 5 3/4 under the G string. So by laying a straight edge on the fingerboard between the middle strings, we're checking several things simultaneously, one of which is the shoot of the fingerboard, that there needs to be a slight inward curve, and that appears to be just about right. We've got a millimetre or so space under the ruler in the middle of the fingerboard. That seems okay. And then also with this straight edge laid, I'm putting in another ruler here, and I can see, well, I can immediately see several things. The elevation is spot on. That's 27.5 millimetres, which is what we want. But the obvious thing, when I place my ruler here, square on the surface of the table, I can see that the bridge is quite badly distorted, and that is almost certainly the cause of all or any problems that there are with this violin. So the most important thing we have to do is to straighten that bridge. At the foot of the bridge here is not sitting squarely on the table. There's a big gap here. So basically it needs to be physically pulled back and then possibly straightened. But to do that, we will have to take the bridge off. The next thing on my list to do before we take the bridge off, intervene anyway, is to check the sound post is in the right position, and also we don't accidentally disturb it when we take the strings off. And this is a simple feeler made out of a credit card. It looks as if it's been in that position for some time. It's not been disturbed. The other things that you need to check for is that the post is vertical in this axis and also in this axis, which can be difficult to judge. Nice non-permanent glue that doesn't leave a mark. Just lay that there. So when we take the bridge off, we know that's where it needs to go back. So that gives me the position for the top of the soundpost. And then I've got a specially slenderized pencil that allows me to get on the inside just one little dot in the front of the post where it sits on the back, and one little dot on the back, on the side of the post. So we've got two discrete location marks. Another thing that becomes obvious looking at it is that the nut and the saddle of the instrument are not in alignment. The strings make a bend over the bridge, which means either that the neck is not straight or the end pin is not in the middle of the back. The only cure for this is to strip the instrument down completely and possibly reset the neck, or if it is just a case that the end pin has been put in the wrong place, we take that out, bush the end pin hole and refit the end pin in alignment. One thing we can do just to check where the problem may lie with this dog leg in the strings is to check quickly whether the end pin is central. Just lay the fiddle on its side and line up one point of these dividers. Turn the violin over. And you can see very clearly the end pin is in the wrong place. We can take the end pin out, fill the hole with a bushing just as we do a peg bushing, and then re-drill the hole. It's obviously got to move that way quite a lot. Stop length from the middle of the bridge to the top edge, which is 193, which is fine. That is where the bridge should be. And also check the length of the neck, which is 129. It's a millimetre short, but that's most acceptable. All the proportions are reasonably okay. This distance between the nut of the saddle and the bridge should be 1/6 of the string length. This is definitely too long. The tailpiece is also too far from the saddle. The tail gut is very long. This should have a longer tailpiece fitted onto it. We could realign the end pin and we could fit a more appropriate tailpiece, and then we'd deliver a violin that was sounding better than it's ever done in its life before, I expect. I'm going to take the bridge off now so that we can straighten it. I like to reduce tension on the E string as much as possible, and on the other strings very slightly. Using a bridge jack, we can raise the strings a little and remove the bridge. Once the tension is off the instrument completely, it's quite possible that the soundpost will just fall down, and we don't want that to happen. Using this little screw jack, we can take the pressure off the bridge so that we can slip it away, and there we've got the bridge free and the violin is safe. So we've got the bridge away. The first thing I want to do is give it a little clean up before we start messing about with it, just to take this build up of rubbish from the mute. So a bridge should be made with a slight curve on the front face. We look here and see actually it's flat, and the back of the bridge should be flat, and here we see that actually it's quite bent, and this means that the wood itself has been distorted, has been bent by the tension of the strings, and we'll have to relieve that by heating the bridge up and leaving it clamped flat, preferably overnight. And by relaxing the fibres in the wood with heat, it will return to its original state. What I generally do is to warm the bridge up on a heating iron, roughly the same as an iron that you would use for ironing shirts. You get it to a temperature where it won't actually scorch the wood. If you just allow a drop of water to hit the surface and it just sizzles, that's perfectly enough. Make sure that the heated the wood sufficiently to allow it to flex back to where it was. And then just with a couple of clamps and a couple of cauls to protect the wood, we can clamp it. You can see how it's not sitting flat. That's how much we need to bend it. And hopefully in the morning it'll have relaxed back into the position it should be. If it resists that, you can actually put a very thin piece of wood under the bridge, so you're actually forcing it back over a curve. You're forcing it back further than it wants to go, and then it will just relax back. But what this violin obviously also needs is a bit of a clean up. There's a lot of deposits from the rosin, and that can be bad for the sound. There's also quite often a problem when the dust builds up between the tip of the wing of the F-hole and the outer edge of the F-hole. That can cause buzzing, it can cause all sorts of problems. So it's always a good idea to keep that clean. This is just plain water with some water softener. It's basically just a very mild detergent in a very low concentration, but it's just enough to break the waxy surface of the dirt. And you can see very quickly that the cotton swab is becoming blackened. It's picking up the dirt from the front, and that's fine. That's just what we want. We don't want to use anything at all that might interfere with the varnish that's on the violin. And always the rule is to take the mildest cleaning agent first. Once we've removed as much dirt as we can, to get the surface back to a shine, the best thing in my view is this Renaissance wax. It's a synthetic microcrystalline wax. It doesn't interfere with the varnish, and it's very easily removable. A clean cloth, and then buff that up, and we've got a very nice soft waxy surface. Another thing I need to do is check that the surface of the fingerboard is in good condition, good playing order. But this looks fine. When I look down, I can see a nice straight surface, not one that's rippled. This has got quite a lot of rosin which is obscuring the surface of the fingerboards. Use just a cotton swab with a very minimum amount of solvent on it so that it will not drip. Again, for safety, hold the violin upside down. If it does drip or you should slip, it will fall away from the front rather than onto the front. I notice that around the edge here, the wood's been broken here and there. One of the most effective things I've found is just to use some hard wax. It's beeswax and carnauba wax. I've dipped the wax into a bit of earth pigment, just a brown colour that matches the varnish, and then just quickly apply it. And then when that's hardened up, just gently rub it. That's now nice and soft and smooth. First we need to seal the wood before we put any colour onto it, otherwise the colour will just soak straight into the wood. And so that's just some alcohol to dilute the retouching varnish, and then we can just use that to seal this bare wood. Yellow pigment, orange pigment, and a little bit, a very tiny dab of black to tone that down to match the rest of the varnish. Some more varnish over the top of that to seal it.